I'm Lakuma Tumati from Deloitte's Consulting's India office. Glad to be a part of the TechGig Geek Goddess event, and thanks to Times Group for the time that I've been given. And I'm very glad to be sharing my thoughts on how women in tech are gaining their grounds. I'm personally very passionate about the topic, and my vision is to get to a space where we do not talk about this any longer, and it becomes an ingrained part of our industry and ways of working. Here's what I will do. I'll divide my conversation into two parts. The first part is my own story, and the second is the lessons that I've learned and that I hope each of you can draw from. And these are also things that each of you should think through. And I'm obviously sure that each of us will then be able to, grow more. And the ground that we're sharing now will get to much larger percentage than where we are today. Hope that's a fair deal. Now, let me start by telling you my career story that I started about 18 years ago. I was campus recruited to an Indian company, not Deloitte. Of the 15 that were selected, we were 3 women from the engineering stream that I was a part of. Well, you can imagine the scenario would have been, and to our luck, one of the women decided not to join. So there we were, 2 women in the large group of male colleagues, and it was not easy. But we had to find our friends that stayed as our support through the training, as we got our projects, as our peer tech geeks who learned and grew it. And the girl that joined with me today is very successful in her career too, and she's a friend for life. Now later, as time passed by, all of us go through the journey. I had to get married. My spouse was in the US, and it was a tough choice. I had to decide if it was job first because I was working in India, or moving and staying with my spouse and job later. Well, it was a no-brainer, right? To choose the later, to be with the spouse, of course. But I do not want to give up without trying. So what I did was I wanted to keep my job in and I raised my hand and asked for help. It was a conversation with my boss, and I remember him so well. I told him that I wanted to continue my job, and if there was a way that I could after getting married. And guess what? I got my L1 done, got transferred to the US, and I continued to pursue my career. Well, I do not disagree that luck favored me because it was not easy to, get my visa, continue my job, be in the same space that my spouse was, and things like that. But the question I asked myself, would it have favored me had I not raised my hand? Would it have favored me had I not asked for help? Would it have favored me if I had not shared my aspirations? Well, the answer is no, it would not have. I had to do what I had to, and then, leave it to luck. Well, got married, moved to the US. There I was balancing my, married life, working away to glory, gaining new experiences. I was a very strong Java developer. I moved on to become an architect, a lead. Gained experience even on how do we build platforms that then can be used as a base to extend customizations to, regions and customers and so on. And in that little time, as I was enjoying my role, the entry to motherhood kicked in, and I'm sure most of you are smiling along with me right now. I worked till day -1 of my first child's entry into the world and took a maternity break. And mostly these are things that are not in our control. So my maternity break got extended to a longer break. I had my second child, and this was about 2 years of break. The second child was 1 year old. Yes, I had children back to back, but trust me, it was not planned and it was not easy, but I never complained because the joy that motherhood gives all of us. Now, I had a personal choice. I always wanted to come back to India. I wanted the children to grow up in India, close to the extended family, especially close to their grandparents, which is my parents and in-laws. It was a pre-marriage agreement with my spouse, and loads of respect to him. He honored it. We moved back. Now, here I am, 2 kids. Second one was a year old, 2 years of break back in India, and the itch of wanting to get back to work started again. Of course, when we have this break and we're getting back to work, a lot of us have these doubts in our head, right? Am I ready? Am I out of touch with tech? How will I take care of the 2 little ones? The whole personal ethics and guilt of motherhood that kicks in. And then there was a big myth that I had in my head that, who would want somebody with 2 small kids, a maternity break, come back and join their team? But guess what? I had these problems, but I also wanted to make it a problem of my family. So I sat them down. I had a conversation. I spoke with my spouse. I spoke with my parents. I spoke with my mother-in-law. One thing that I did not mention was, my parents were working, and I'm the single child. So I grew up with working parents. So I knew what I was getting into when I was signing up for it. And my mother-in-law was also a working parent, and she was a single mother as well. So that was a lot of, family environment, and they understood what I wanted to get into and gave me the support that I wanted. Now, of course, with that support, I had to brush up my skills. And then I hit the market. And guess what? I had 3 offers. Of course, it's tough to make a choice. I had to make a decision. And that's when my spouse again came back as my support system and said I had to go join Deloitte, because he had worked with Deloitte in the past and in the US. And he said, probably with the culture of the firm and the way it works and the help that it gives to working women, I should try to pursue it. And that was probably the first time and the last time that I listened to him and I took up Deloitte. And here I am. It has been a great journey of 12 years with Deloitte now. I joined as a senior consultant, made a senior manager, and now I am here in a leadership position, having a lovely time balancing both worlds of personal as well as professional. Now, with that career story, a pretty long one, but I wanted to make sure I cover all the pivotal points there. It brings me to the second part of our conversation. The lessons that I learned, as well as my asks of you. According to Deloitte Insights, the number of working women in tech today are about 34%. And that's a great space that we are in. 34% is not a small number. But I believe there are pivotal moments in all our lives that if we stay strong at, and that we make sure that we're doing everything in our control and taking the right decisions, the 34% won't take long to get to a larger number and for all of us to be able to share great results. But again, back to those lessons that I learned and the things that I want you to retrospect and think through. The first one, support system can come in any form. All of us have these myths and boundaries that support system is usually women at work, or it comes from only your parents. It can come from any part of the world or any part of your personal world or professional world. When I joined the job, when I had to move to the US to be with my spouse, when I was recruited to Deloitte, help and support came from my male colleagues and bosses. It came from my mother-in-law. It came from my parents who had both been working and knew the juggle of life and balancing kids. It came from my spouse who stayed the course through with me. The second is, there are pivotal moments, like I just said, in all of our lives. And I think all of us kind of give in, we give up. But my ask of all of you is to stay strong, stay the course, and find solutions. And again, you're not alone when you're finding solutions. You can definitely take the help of people that you've known. The stories that I'm able to share today in this platform, probably the platform that we have today, the Times Group, the TechGig Geek Goddesses, there's so many stories that you would hear. There's so many panel discussions that you would be a part of. There's so many thoughts that you would kind of gain through this. I would ask you to pause, reflect. These sessions were not there before. These sessions are there now. So make sure that you use what you learn in those pivotal moments of your life. The third thing that I would say is never say no to an opportunity, whether it's small or big. For instance, when I joined Deloitte, there was a new practice that was being built. It was a myth again, right? Not such a cool practice, but definitely there were a lot of opportunities. I did not say no to it. And today, I got a lot of career opportunities in this space to be able to grow to where I am now. And that happened because I did not say no to that opportunity. And opportunities never come in small gift boxes wrapped up and looking neat. It's for you to identify them and take them and grow with them. The fourth thing that I would say is be bold and say what no one else would. It's truly not easy for me to share my life story here, but there's a reason I'm doing it, because I want all of you to also know that there's so many like you out there who've had similar stories, similar journeys. And I would say, go ahead, share your story and share it where it matters so that people can learn from you and take it forward. And also say things that no one else would and you believe are right and will help the workforce for women to grow in the tech field. And the last thing that I would say is probably, do not lose touch with technology. It's an ever-changing field. So stay in touch, invest in yourselves, and make sure that, of course, again, there's this big question that comes in all our mind is how much depth is good enough, how much breadth is good enough. But I would leave that to you. Given where you are, what roles are you playing, but it's important to stay in touch. It's important to invest in yourself, health-wise or tech-wise. That's it for today. Thank you.